Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki srinvatam swakatah krishna punyashravana kirtana hridyantasto hi abhadrani vidhunoti sahritsatam krishnaya vasudevaya devaki nandanaya cha nandagopakumaraya govindaya namo namaha Mokam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam. Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to the class. So we'll continue the study of chapter 4. Last week we had a long introduction and so it went on for too long. So we'll directly discuss from, I think we covered till verse 5. So the first set of questions were asked by the sages of Naimisharanya. They were answered in chapter 2 and 3. Chapter 2 focused on the devotion service. Chapter 3 answers the last two questions about the incarnations and where did Dharma took shelter. Those two questions were answered in chapter 3, where the various Purusha avatars and Leela avatars, and finally concluding with the Krishna avatar as the source of all the avatars was described. And then the glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam was given. And after all these questions, now given the answers to these questions, now again the focus shifts to the sages. The sages will begin this next set of 4 questions, primarily focused on the history of Srimad Bhagavatam. What was the inspiration for Vyasadeva to compile this? Why and where did he do this? And who was the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami, his history, his appearance, and then Parikshit Maharaj, who was the recipient of Bhagavatam. So these were questions related to the activities of birth and activities of Parikshit Maharaj, and how he was, how he had the situation where he started asking, inquiring about Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami. Those are the set of questions that will appear in this section. So we discussed first 5 verses. We'll go to the 6th verse. We'll try to complete this chapter today. We discussed this in detail. Katam alakshita paurai
Katham alashita purai
samprapta kuru jangalam
samprapta kuru jangalam
tamukha jadavat
unmata mukha jadavat
charan gaja sahave sahvaye. Please read, Prabhu.
Translation by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. How was he, Srila Sukadeva, the son of Vyasa, recognized by the citizens when he entered the city of Hastinapura, now Delhi, after wandering in the province of Kuru and Jangala, appearing like a madman, dumb and retarded?
We discussed this when Sukadeva Goswami, after passing through the forest, then he entered the Hastinapur, and he was in appearance looking like a retarded person, dumb and madman. Right? So the point Prabhupada says is, an individual should not be estimated by his external looks. In general, in the material world, people look externals and try to estimate the internals. So that is the wrong way to see. So that is the key point to learn. For example, even Jadabharata was appearing like a retarded person, dumb and idiotic person, but he was a fully self-realized person. Similarly, here Sukadeva Goswami is also fully self-realized soul, but externally he is appearing like a madman. Yeah. Read this.
The sage is not therefore recognized by sight, but by hearing. One should approach a sadhu or great sage not to see, but to hear him. If one is not prepared to hear the words of a sadhu, there is no profit. Sukadeva Goswami was a sadhu who could speak on the transcendental activities of the Lord. He did not satisfy the whims of ordinary citizens. He was recognized when he spoke on the subject of Bhagavatam, and he never attempted jugglery like a magician. Outwardly, he appeared to be a retarded, dumb madman, but in fact, he was the most elevated transcendental personality.
Main point is, you should never see a great personality by his external appearance. Right? Sometimes we see pictures of devotees in Vrindavan who are like beggars, look like beggars, but they might be completely self-realized. So we should not judge by the external dress or external appearance. Katam va pandaveyasya
Katham va
Pandaveyasya
Rajarsher Munina Saha
Rajarsher
Samvada Sambhutata
Samvada Samabhutatata
Yatraisha Satvati Shruti.
Satvati Shruti.
Yeah, please read.
Can you read, Prabhu? Srimad Bhagavatam is stated here as the essence of the Vedas. It is not.
Translation notes.
Oh, sorry. How did it so happen that King Parikshit met this great sage, making it possible for this great transcendental essence of the Vedas, Bhagavatam, to be sung to him?
So these are the, as I mentioned, these are the next set of questions that are being asked by the sages of Naimshamyas, represented by, who is the representative of all the sages?
Ravana Rishi.
Shaunaka Rishi was asking on behalf of all the sages. Right? So they want to know about how Parikshit Maharaj meets Sukadeva Goswami. Yeah? And the result is Bhagavatam. Yeah, please read.
Srimad Bhagavatam is stated here as the essence of the Vedas. It is not an imaginary story as it is sometimes considered by unauthorized men. It is also called Shuka Samhita.
So this meeting of Parikshit and Sukadeva Goswami, the discussion between them is also called Sukha Samhita. Sagodohana matram hi Griheshu Grihamedinam Avekshate Mahabhagas Siddhi Kurvam Stadashramam. Please read.
He, Sukadev Goswami, was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked. And he did this just to sanctify the residence.
Yeah, Sukadeva Goswami, he's a renounced person. He's in the renounced order. So in the Vedic times, the people who are renounced, they would go to the householders' homes and only give attention and time so much as the time taken to milk a cow. Yeah. So And the purpose is not to beg, not to take some benefit, but in fact, it is to, when a saintly person comes, visits the home becomes sanctified. There was a question, Prabhu. Shyamukam Prabhu. Your hand was raised. Yeah.
Sorry, Prabhu, I raised by mistake.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Please continue reading.
Sukadev Goswami met Emperor Parikshit and explained the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. He was not accustomed to stay at any householder's residence for more than half an hour. Therefore, Sukadev Goswami is an ideal preacher established in the transcendental position. From his activities, those who are in the renounced order of life and dedicated to the mission of preaching the message of Godhead should learn that they have no business with householders, save and except to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. Such asking for alms from the householder should be for the purpose of sanctifying his home. One who is in the renounced order of life should not be allured by the glamour of the householder's worldly possessions and thus become subservient to worldly men. For one who is in the renounced order of life, this is much more dangerous than drinking poison and committing suicide.
This is a lesson for anybody who is in the renounced order. So they should be very cautious when they deal with householders, because in the householder lives, especially if householders are rich, it is possible that the consciousness of the renounced order people, they may contemplate, they get too involved too much in the householder's life and his problems. So it can disturb his consciousness and may deviate him from his path. So it's very dangerous. So the only purpose of a renounced person to engage with a householder is to sanctify and purify them. Abhimanyu sutam suta Rahur Bhagavatotamam Asya Janma Mahascharyam Karmani cha grinihina. Yeah, please read the important verse.
It is said that Maharaj Parikshit is a great first-class devotee of the Lord and that his birth and activities are all wonderful. Please tell us about him.
Yeah, so he is Prahur Bhagavatotamam. Bhagavatotamam means the best devotee. Bhagavatotamam. And Tasya Janma Mahascharyam. His birth and activities are all wonderful because he's a pure devotee. His birth, we know his birth is very wonderful because Lord himself directly entered his mother's womb to protect him from Brahmastra, shooted by Ashwadhama. And even his activities were all wonderful. He was the best king, following the guidance of his and the instructions of his fathers, grandfathers, Yudhishthira Maharaj, and also great grandfather Bhishma, who taught him how to rule the country. So in this way, he has all the best instructions. So he was the best king. And towards the end of his life, he also gave up in a very ideal way, right? So his activities are all wonderful. Yeah, his activities are wonderful because he chastised Kali, who was attempting to kill a cow, right? To kill cow means to end human civilization, because cow is mother. One who kills mother will have to take the repercussion for that. So he wanted to protect the cow from being killed by the great representative of sin. His death is also wonderful because he got previous notice of his death. Yeah, that's also is wonderful because most people do not get the notice of death. Yeah. And thus prepared himself for passing away. by sitting down on the bank of Ganges and hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord. He utilized in the best way after knowing that he is going to pass away soon. Sasamrat Kashyapa Heto
Samraheto
Pandunam Manavardhano
Manavardhana
Prayopavisto Gangayam Anadricha Hita Sriyam. Please read.
He was a great emperor and possessed all the opulences of his acquired kingdom. He was so exalted that he was increasing the prestige of the Pandu dynasty. Why did he give up everything to sit down on the bank of the Ganges and fast until death?
First, the history of Bhagavatam was asked, and then about the speaker of Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami. Now we are discussing the questions are about the activities of Rakshit Maharaj. Inquiring about why he was very young, he was doing very well, he was the best king, he had all the opulences, there is nothing lacking in him. Why at all he has to give up? Right? Why he has to give up and fast until death? What is the reason? He inherited everything from his grandfathers, Yudhishthira Maharaj and brothers. Besides that, he was doing well in administration and worthy of good name for his forefathers. Then, why should he give up all these favorable circumstances and sit down on the bank? He is astonishing, and therefore all were eager. Everybody is surprised because he has youth, he has everything. Namanti yatpada niketanam Shivaya haniya dhanani saprava Tatam savira yamanga tushtajum Yuvai satostrastum aho sahushabi So his greatness is explained. Namanti yatpada niketam atmanaha. Who are going at his feet? All the kings, all his enemies were at his feet. All the sub-kings were all at his feet. So that was his state when he actually took to renunciation and gave up his life. Yeah, please read.
He was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed kingly opulences that were difficult to give up. Why did he want to give up everything, including his life?
Why did he give up everything? It's not only for his benefit. The kingdom is getting the best rulership. It's not just about him, because he's in such a position. He's also responsible for the happiness and welfare of all the people in general. So the sages were asking, everything is so good. Why does he have to do this? Continue.
He conquered his enemies, and therefore the kingdom was full of prosperity. There was enough milk, grains, and metals, and all the rivers and mountains were full of potency. So materially, everything was satisfactory. Therefore, there was no question of untimely giving up his kingdom and life. The sages were eager to hear about all this.
Everything was supplied very well. Why? He was a reason why his kingdom was so opulent.
He was a Krishna conscious king.
Yes.
He was following Dharma.
Krishna is also happy, right? Generally, if the king is considered the representative of God, and a king who is a pure devotee, he represents the Lord's will 100%. When there is a great king, all the demigods who are representatives of Supreme Lord are extremely happy. And so there is going to be naturally all the prosperity. So there is no scarcity at all. So everybody in the kingdom were practicing devotion service under his rulership nicely. And everybody was happy. So what was the reason why he had to do this? Shivaya lokasya bhavaya bhutaye
Shivaya
tama shloka parayana jana jivanti natmartam asau sparasrayam umocha nirvidya kutah kalevaram. Characteristics are described about of Parikshit Maharaj. Uttama Shloka Parayana. His only purpose is the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Yeah? Uttama Shloka is the Supreme Lord. Parayana means one who is dedicated to that cause. Yeah? Jivanti, his life was, completely, there is no selfish interest in his life. Yeah. Please read.
Those who are devoted to the cause of the personality of Godhead live only for the welfare, development, and happiness of others. They do not live for any selfish interest. So, even though the Emperor Parikshit was free from all attachment to the worldly possessions, how could he give up his mortal body, which was the shelter for others?
So this shows the culture of those days. The sages were so thoughtful about everything. See how these inquiries are so deep thoughtful. If not about his, maybe he's not interested. He is a very renounced king. Maybe he wants to give up. But a king facilitates the devotion service of all the praja. So if not for his self-interest, he should at least consider the happiness of all the people who are there in the kingdom. So in that sense, he should be not taking out his life. How could he give up his mortal body, which was shelter for others? It's not about him, it's about others, because they were fully sheltered by him. Continue.
Parikshit Maharaj was an ideal king and householder because he was a devotee of the personality of Godhead. A devotee of the Lord automatically has all good qualifications, and the emperor was a typical example of this. Personality, he had no attachment for all the worldly opulences in his possession. But since he was king for the all-around welfare of the citizens, he was always busy in the welfare work of the public, not only for this life, but also for the next. He would not allow slaughterhouse or killing of cows.
Yeah.
He was not just a highlighted part, Prabhu.
Yeah.
He was not selfishly interested, selfless, and either self-centered or self-extended. He was neither. His interest was to please the supreme truth, the personality of Godhead. The king is the representative of the Supreme Lord, and therefore the king's interest must be identical with that of the Supreme Lord.
Yes.
The Supreme Lord.
So this is a very important point. Oh, we just read through like that. Understand this point that the essence of Parikshit Maharaj is selfless service to his praja. Right? So a person is defined by his core values. What is he motivated by? What is his drive? We praise Mahatma Gandhi because his inner core drive was liberation of India. There is no selfishness at all. So when a leader or a king has that selfless motivation, it inspires everybody. Everybody can see that. Everybody can feel that, because there is no selfish interest at all. So this is a lesson for anybody who is in a leadership position. When they are working for the welfare of the people under them, that naturally shows. Right? So in this case, Parikshit Maharaj was such a selfless king. And he was a devoted also. He was always for the cause of Lord Krishna. Yeah. Continue.
The Supreme Lord wants all living beings to be obedient to him and thereby become happy. Therefore, the king's interest is to guide all subjects back to the kingdom of God. Hence, the activities of the citizens should be so coordinated that they can, at the end, go back home, back to Godhead. Under the administration of a representative king, the kingdom is full of opulence.
Naturally, because Krishna will supply everything. Let's discuss to you. Tatsarvam na samakshva
तत्सर्वं समाचक्षुः
Ishto iha kinchana
पृष्टो यदिह किञ्चन
manye tvam vishaye vacham
मन्ये त्वं विषये वाचं
Natam anyatra chandasa
स्नातम् अन्यत्र
Chandasa.
We know that you are expert in the meaning of all subjects, except some portions of Vedas, and thus you can clearly explain the answers to all questions we have just put to you.
So, if you remember in the first chapter of Bhagavatam, the sages were praising Sutta Goswami that he understood the conclusions very well. He is the best person to speak about this. Now here they are saying there are some portions of Vedas, except for some portions of Vedas, we are expert in everything else. So what is that? That is clarified by Prabhupada in the purport here. So yeah, please continue, Prabhu.
The difference between the Vedas and the Puranas is like that between the Brahmanas and Parivrajakas. The Brahmanas are the meant to administer some fruitive sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas, but the Parivrajacharyas or learned preachers are meant to disseminate the transcendental knowledge to one and all. As such, Parivrajacharyas are not always expert in pronouncing the Vedic mantras, which are practiced systematically by assent and meter. And the Brahmanas, who are meant for administrating the Vedic rites. Here it should not be considered that Brahmanas are more important than the itinerant preachers. They are the one and the different simultaneously because they are meant for the same end in the different ways.
So there are two kinds of followers of Vedas, or the persons who are knowledgeable of Vedas. One is Brahmanas, the other is Parivajakacharyas. Brahmanas are expert in memorizing and quoting the verses, or speaking, conducting sacrifices by speaking the Samhitas. And the other category is the Parivajakacharyas, who try to focus on the philosophy of it and assimilate it, practice it, and share with others. Right? All the sannyasis, they were focused on the ultimate purpose of Vedas. So Parivajakacharyas may not focus on memorization and this practice of sacrifices. So they may not really understand those portions. So that's exactly what they refer to here when they say there are some portions you are not expert, but you're expert in the essence, basically. Yeah, please read.
Yeah, besides that, the most perfectly liberated soul, Srila Sukadeva Goswami, is absorbed in the studies of the Bhagavatam. Although he is already self-realized, Srila Sutta Goswami is following his footsteps, and therefore his position is not the least less important, because he was expert in chanting Vedic mantras with metric pronunciation, which depends more on practice than actual realization. Realization is more important than a patriotic chanting.
Parrot-like.
Parrotic chanting.
Yeah, so what we discussed is repeated here. Sukadeva Goswami Sukadeva Goswami and then Suta Goswami. Both were realized in the wisdom of the scriptures. That is more important. Suta Uvacha
Suta Vacha
Dvapare Samanu Prapte
Dvapare Samanuprapte
Ye Yuga Paryaye
Tritiye Yuga
Paryaye
Jata Parasarad Yogi
Yogi
Vasavyam Kalaya Hare.
Vasavyam Hare Hare.
Suta Goswami said, when the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vyasadeva was born to Parashara in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu.
So far it's all questions by the sages. They were asking about three aspects. One is the history of Bhagavatam, and the second is the speaker of Bhagavatam, and the hearer of Bhagavatam, which is Parikshit Maharaj. So they were asking about what was the inspiration for compiling Bhagavatam, when and where it was compiled by Vyasadeva, and then they were asking about Parikshit Maharaj, and they were asking about Sukadeva Goswami. All those questions were now done. Now Suta Goswami speaks again to answer these questions, right? So he begins by answering about the birth of Vyasadeva, how he was born, right? When he was born, sorry. Yeah. He was born as the son of Parashar Muni and Satyavati. Yeah. Please read, Prabhu.
There is a chronological order of the four millenniums, namely Satya, Dwapara, Treta, and Kali. But sometimes there is overlapping. During the regime of Vaivashvata Manu, there was an overlapping of 28th round of the four millenniums, and the third millennium appeared prior to the second.
So our acharyas explain why this happened, because in this particular Kali, in this Chatur Yuga, Lord Krishna comes, and after that Lord Chaitanya comes, and so it will be a continuum after that. So for that reason, they were, Lord Krishna appears only once in the day of Brahma, and Lord Chaitanya also appears in a similar fashion. So when they come, this particular order changes. Yeah. So,
Prabhuji, could you please explain what is that overlap? There was overlap of 28th round of 4 millenniums.
yeah.
How is that overlap, Prabhuji?
The overlap of the overlap means the order changed a little bit. So generally the order is Satya, Dwapara. Dwa means 2, Treta 3, and then Kali, right? But in this Chatur Yuga, how is it? The one before Kali Yuga is actually Dwapara Yuga. The one before that is Treta Yuga, and then the one before that is Satya Yuga. So it happens only once in the day of Brahma, at which time Krishna as the original personality comes. In the other Chatur Yugas, Lord Krishna, the Swayam Rupa, doesn't come. So it's a very special Chatur Yuga, at which time the Swayam Rupa comes. So other times it is an expansion of Kshirodaksa Vishnu, who is a Yuga avatar, comes, and he teaches the Yuga Dharma. So, but in this Chatur Yuga, Lord Krishna directly comes. After that, Lord Chaitanya comes. So it's a special prerogative of this particular
Generally Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga, right? That is a sequence.
No, Satya, Dwapar, Treta, and Kali. Right now, it is the reverse. Dwapar and Treta are reversed in the current cycle.
Current cycle.
Oh.
In Kali Yuga, so this is Kali Yuga. What
Yes.
what was the age before this?
Dwapara Yuga.
But it should be ideally Treta Yuga, third, right?
It should be that is a regular, that is the normal sequence: Satya, Dwapara, Treta, and Kali.
That is the regular, but this time it is not.
But this time it's not correct.
Oh, yeah, so that is the overlap. That's
Oh,
the,
okay. This happens only once in Chaturyuga.
once in a once in a day of Brahma.
28th.
1,000 Chaturyugas like that.
Oh, okay. Once in a day of Brahma. 1,000 Chaturyugas. Okay.
Hmm.
So in that sequence, Krishna comes in Dwapara Yuga.
If you read this, it will make
Okay.
So, Prabhu, the in regular sequence, then the duration also will be different, right? So, in current sequence, Dwapara Yuga is shorter,
Correct.
whereas
Correct.
generally it will be longer, right? Then,
Yeah, everything changes accordingly. So in that particular millennium, Lord Krishna also descends, and because of in that particular millennium is the one where there is this overlap, and because of this, there was some particular alteration. Yeah. The mother of the great sage was Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. And the father was Risharana. This is the history of Vyasadeva. Yeah, Vyasadeva appeared in the third Sandhya of that particular. There are 3 Sandhyas in every Yuga. Sandhya means junction, actually. There is one primary Yuga period, and then there is the Sandhya, that is the beginning, and then there is Sandhya, that is the ending. So he appeared in the third Sandhya of that particular age, or third part of the particular period.
So that Sandhya is like between Satya and Dwapara and Treta.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
Treta, like in between those.
There is Sandhya. So right now, this the beginning of Kali Yuga, this is also considered golden age. This is like a Sandhya period only, actually, up to first 10,000 years. So there is going to be, it's a golden age. It's considered, the Sandhyas are special periods where the period is considered as good as Satya Yuga, actually. It means it's the golden age. That's why this is called golden age. And practicing devotion service and following, and there is a much better chance of practicing devotion service in Sandhya periods.
So, Prabhuji, one question. So in this, so we heard that in one day of Brahma, this 1 day of Brahma, Krishna only appears once, right? And Lord Chaitanya. Huh?
Krishna in Swayamrupa appears only once.
Yeah, and Lord Chaitanya also appears once. So is it same with Lord Rama as well?
No, Lord Rama is Leela Avatar. Lord Rama appears.
I thought yes, Prabhu, right? On the 24th Chaturyuga, or
28.
he appears, and 28th is what Lord Krishna comes.
Yeah, this is 28. He appeared in 24th. So does he appear in subsequent Chaturyugas as well?
So I don't know about that, because generally I haven't heard about that discussion. Because there will be avatars, right? Every yuga will have avatars. Just the Swayamrupa is a special avatar that comes once in a, it's like a president comes.
Okay.
Right? There are so many meetings that happen, and there will be representatives in every cycles or every yuga. I don't know more about Rama avatar.
Okay, Prabhu, thank you.
Sakadachit Saraswatya
Sakadachit Saraswatya
Upaprisya Jalam Suchi
Upaprashya Jalam Suchi
Vikta Ek Asina
Vikta Eka Asina
Udite Ravi Mandale. Please read. This is about Parikshit Maharaj.
Once upon a time, he, Vyasadeva, as the sun rose, took his morning ablution ebullition in the waters of the Saraswati and sat alone to the concentrate.
So it is describing the incident of Vyasadeva sitting in meditation in the morning time one day, on a particular day. Yeah. So the river Saraswati is flowing in Badrikashram area of Himalayas. Yeah. So the story of Vyasadeva is given, how he was inspired to compile this literature. Paravaragna sa rishi
Paravaragna sa rishi
kalena vyakta ramhasa
kalena vyakta ramhasa
yugadharma vyatikaram
Yugadharma vyatikaram
praptam yuge yuge.
praptam bhuvi yuge yuge.
Please read.
The great sage Vyasadeva saw anomalies in the duties of the millennium. This happens on the earth in different ages due to the unseen force of time.
Vyasadeva is Trikalagna and also he is very observant. So he could see what is coming up in the future. He saw that there are some changes in the way people are working, anomalies in the duties of millennium. People are showing the symptoms of Kali Yuga. Yeah, go ahead, Prabhu.
The great sages like Vyasadeva are liberated souls, and therefore they can see clearly past and future. Thus, he could see the future anomalies in the Kali age, and accordingly, he made arrangement for the people in general so they can execute a progressive life in this age which is full of darkness.
See, as a compassionate sage, selflessly he is trying to make arrangements for the welfare of people who are going to come in the future. Right? Just like our Goswamis, they, for the benefit of all the people coming up in the future generations, they compiled all the scriptures. They referred all the many scriptures and they brought the essence of bhakti from all of them for the benefit and welfare of everyone. So similarly, Vyasadeva foresaw what is coming up in Kali Yuga. He started preparing work. He started working for the welfare of people that are coming in the future. Bhautikānām ca bhāvānām
Bhautikānām ca bhāvānām
Sakti hrishām ca tat kritam
Shakti risham tatam
Ashraddhanām nihasvatām
Ashraddhanām nishsatvam
Durmedhām rashitāhyushā
Durmedhām rashitāhyushā
Durbhaganscha janan vikshya
Durbhagam
Munir divyena chakshusha Sarvavarnashramanam yad
Sarvavarnashramanam
Dadhyau hitam amoghadrik So he started seeing the symptoms of Kali Yuga.
The great sage, who was fully equipped in knowledge, could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. He could also see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus, he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses and orders of life.
So he contemplated for the welfare of different statuses, of not just a general, okay, I know all of this, I can just compile for them. Okay, there will be low intelligent people. So he thought about all those details about the people who are coming in the future. Right? He talked about the lack of qualifications. Right? Sakti Hrisham Cha. they don't have power, they very less energy. And then Ashraddadhan, faithless, Nisattva, impatient, due to lack of mode of goodness, very impatient people. Durmedhan, dull-witted. Rashita, reduced in life. Rashita, Ayusha. Durbhagancha, unlucky. So in this way, all these qualities are there in the people coming in Kali Yuga. So he is considering everybody, the benefit of everyone, and thinking about that. Yeah, please read.
Purport. The unmanifested forces of time are so powerful that they reduce all matter to oblivion in due course. In Kali Yuga, the last millennium of a round of 4 millenniums, the power of all material objects deteriorates by the influence of time.
Everything reduces. We read that.
Yes, Prabhu. In this age, okay.
Read this one.
Okay. And all such transcendentalists who are naturally devotees of the Lord are always eager to render welfare service to the people in general. They are the real friends of the people in general, not the so-called public leaders who are unable to see what is going to happen 5 minutes ahead. In this age, the people in general, as well as their so-called leaders, are all unlucky fellows, faithless in spiritual knowledge and influenced by the age of Kali. They are always disturbed by various diseases.
Yeah. So the real friends are actually devotees because they consider the welfare of others. Right? For example, Srila Prabhupada had no need to go to the West. He was already fully self-realized. He was in ecstasy. He could have continued to chant the holy name chant more, read Bhagavatam and share that knowledge within Vrindavan itself. He will get a lot of audience there itself. He could have done that simply. But he did not consider his inconvenience and considered the welfare of people in the West. And to follow the instruction of his spiritual master, he left all the comforts of his life in Vrindavan, his spiritual life, and he went to serve the low-class people. Right? So that, because they are the real friends, Prabhupada gave what they could never get otherwise. They will never be able to imagine, about the devotion life at all, right? So that was so they are real friends, the pure devotees, like Vyasdeva is contemplating like that here. He's a pure devotee. Yeah. So the greatest of philanthropies are those transcendentalists who represent the mission of Vyasadeva, Narada, Madhva, Chaitanya, Rupa, Saraswati, etc. They are all one and the same. The personalities may be different, but the aim and mission is one and the same. Namely, to deliver the fallen souls back home, back to Godhead. Okay? It's the same. All these people who are fully dedicating their life for the welfare of others. Chaturhotram karma suddham.
Chaturhotram karma shuddham.
Vaidikam.
Prajanam
Vaidikam.
Yadadhat yajna santatyai. Vedam ekam chaturvidham.
Vedam ekam chaturvidham.
Please read.
He saw that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas were means by which the people's occupations could be purified. And to simplify the process, he divided the one Veda into 4 in order to expand them among men.
So after contemplating, Vyasadeva started performing an action, which is to divide the Vedas. He first divided the one Veda into 4 in order to expand them among men. It's a vast body of knowledge. We want to guide 4 professors under him, his disciples, to basically work on each specific Veda in a way that it becomes accessible to the people of Kali Yuga. Yeah, this is basically about dividing the Vedas. We will not read Mahabharata. So, about the 4 Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. There are also Puranas, Mahabharata, and Samhitas, which are known as the 5th Vedas. The Vyasadeva and his many disciples were all historical personalities, and they were very kind and sympathetic towards the fallen souls of this age of Kali. So now, who takes which particular Veda is described here? Rigyaju Samatar Vakya. Vedaschattvara Uddhrita. Itihasa Puranam cha. Panchamo Veda Uchyate. Yeah, now the division is described further. Please read.
The four divisions of the original sources of knowledge, the Vedas, were made separately. But the historical facts and authentic stories mentioned in the Puranas are called the 5th Veda.
So now the reason for why he divided is explained. Tatra Veda Dhara Paila. Samago Jaimini Kavi. Vaishampayana e Vaiko. Nato Yajusam Uta. Please read.
After the Vedas were divided into 4 divisions, Vaila Rishi became the professor of Rig Veda, Jaimani the professor of the Sama Veda, and the Vaishampayana alone became glorified by the Yajur Veda.
So these were divided. Atharvangi Sharam Asit. Samantur Dharuno Muni. Itihasa Puranam. Pitame Romaharshana.
The Sumantu Muni, Angira, who was very devotedly engaged, was entrusted with the Atharva Veda, and my father, Romaharshana, was entrusted with the Puranas and historical records.
The Goswami is Romaharshana Sutta. He was the son of Romaharshana Sutta. Remember, he was the personality who was killed by Romaharshana.
Balramji.
Balram.
Same Romaharshana. So, Suttas were expert in reciting Puranas. Sutta Goswami was in that line. Right? Romaharshana was also an expert in speaking Puranas, and his son after that. Tayeta Rishaya Vedam. Swam Swam Yasyam Anekada.
Swam Swam Vyasya
Ishtai Prashishai Tachishai. Vedaste Sakino Bhavan. Now his Sishyas, they started spreading this knowledge. That's what is described here. Sishai, Prashishai, Tashishai, third level. Yeah. Shishya means disciples, Prashishya means grand disciples, Tashishya means great grand disciples. Go ahead, read.
All these learned scholars in their turn rendered their entrusted Vedas unto their many disciples, grand disciples, and great grand disciples, and thus the respective branches of the followers of the Vedas came into being.
Yeah. So the four Vedas were spread by these in these disciplic successions. Yeah. Continue.
In other words, the Vedic knowledge, broken into different branches by different disciplic successions, has been distributed all over the world. No one, therefore, can claim independent knowledge beyond the Vedas.
So this knowledge was coming. So everybody was strictly following the parampara. Nobody is trying to claim knowledge beyond the Vedas in those days. So if you have knowledge, it has to be sourced in Vedas. That is how people were very, strictly following Vedas. Taeva Veda Durmedhair
Eva Veda
Te Purushair Yatha
Daryante Purushair Yatha
Evam Chakara Bhagavan
Evam Chakara Bhagavan
Vyasa Kripana Vatsala
Vyasaha Kripana
Thus the great sage Vyasadeva, who is very kind to the ignorant masses, edited the Vedas so they might be assimilated by less intellectual men.
So Vyasadeva himself took the charge of writing the Puranas. Edited the Vedas so that they might be assimilated by less intellectual. So he was primarily, he recognized the importance of putting these Vedas in writing and dividing them so that this knowledge would continue spreading in the future generations. Yeah, please continue.
That no one should try to learn the Vedas who is not a qualified Brahmana. This stricture has been wrongly interpreted in so many ways. A class of men who claim Brahminical qualification simply by their birthright in the family of a Brahmana claim that the study of the Vedas is a monopoly of the Brahmana caste only. Another section of people take this as an injustice to members of other castes who do not happen to take birth in a Brahmana family. But both of them are misguided. The Vedas are subjects which had to be explained even to Brahmaji by the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the subject matter is understood by persons with exceptional qualities of goodness.
Guna Karma Vibhagasa. Based on one's qualification, one can study Vedas. It's not meant for everybody. It's actually meant for those who are Brahminical, who are primarily in the mode of goodness. It's not by birthright one can study Vedas and understand and assimilate and teach. It is primarily one has to be qualified to learn and assimilate and share this wisdom. It's not monopoly of any caste.
But the qualification is the goodness, right, Prabhu? It's the goodness. It's not about the caste and birth, it's about the goodness.
Correct, yeah. Only if you are in the mode of goodness can you understand Vedic knowledge. Yeah. That is the reason we follow the 4 regulative principles. Right? That keeps us in the mode of goodness. Stri Sudra Dvija Bandhunam
Shudra Dvija Bandhunam
Shruti Gochara
Traina Shruti Gochara
Karma Shreyashi Mudhana
Karma Shreya
Shreya Evam Bhavediha
Shreya Evam Bhavedaha
Bharatamakhyanam
Iti Bharatamakhyanam
Kripaya Munina Kritam
Kripaya Munina Kritam
Mhm.
Out of compassion, the great sage thought it was it great. Out of compassion, the great sage thought it wise that this would enable men to achieve the ultimate goal of life. Thus, he compiled the great historical narration called the Mahabharata for women, laborers, and friends of the twice born.
Hmm. So he also compiled historical narration, Mahabharata, which is a historical narration. It's not a created story. Not in the high standard of Vedas, but in a prose format, so that everybody, even low Sudras and women and everybody, can take advantage of this Vedic wisdom. People who are less than in the mode of goodness. So this is the general description of people. For example, Prabhupada says those who are practicing Krishna consciousness, they're already in mode of goodness. So it's referring to people in general here. It's not referring to the devotees who are practicing Krishna consciousness. Yeah, please read.
The friends of the twice born families are those who are born in the families of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, are the spiritually cultured families, but who themselves are not equal to their forefathers.
Yeah. So, because not by birth, even a Brahmana son will not become a Brahmana automatically. By one's guna and karma, one actually acquires. It's a qualification that is acquired. Just like an engineer's son doesn't become an engineer automatically. He becomes a engineer by his own effort and his qualification, his effort. Yeah.
If the father and the mother do not undertake the process of spiritual family planning and simply beget children out of passion only, their children are called Dvijabandhus.
Practically in Kali Yuga, 99.999, maybe 3 digits, people are Dvijabandhus. These Dvijabandhus are certainly not as intelligent as the children of the regular twice-born families. The Dvijabandhus are classified with the Sudras and the women class, who are by nature less intelligent. Less intelligent in the sense, who is considered a less intelligent?
Who is in mode of either ignorance or passion?
Yeah, a person who
Do not know about the Lord.
Yes, intelligence is defined by how one can, one approaches the Lord. If one may be, extremely materially intelligent, but he has no idea of anything higher, right? Anything, the purpose of life. In the eyes of Vedic knowledge, they are considered less intelligent. One who aligns with the ultimate purpose of life is considered an intelligent. Because why? You have a human body, physical body. Physical body is a useless thing. Generally, it's a matter. You're using this matter to go back to achieve the highest, which is a place in Vaikunta. If you're a businessman, if you have some, useless article and make it the best, you sell it for say $100 million. That's a great business, isn't it? So using this worthless human body in this Kali Yuga, if you can utilize that to achieve the highest, then such a use is called intelligent use of human body. Because it's a temporary body. It's going to go away very soon. So those who are intelligent, they actually make the best use of this bad bargain. Yeah, continue.
The Sudras and the women class do not have to undergo any samskaras, save and except for the ceremony of marriage.
In general, in Vedic times, the only samskara for Sudras is marriage. That's the only thing. Or otherwise, the Brahmanas, they would undergo, beginning with Garbhadhan Samskar, begetting children. In this way, like, at every Akshara Abhyasa and step by step, and then, Brahmanical thread, and then marriage. So in this way, all the ceremonies were performed. Yeah.
The less intelligent classes of men, namely women, Sudras, and unqualified sons of the higher caste, are devoid of necessary qualifications to understand the purpose of the transcendental Vedas. For them, the Mahabharata was prepared.
So very considerate, Vyasadeva, he was thinking about everybody's consciousness level and accordingly preparing the material so that they can benefit from this. In today's world, the Vedas practically disappeared because anything that is not, valued naturally will disappear, right? Even suppose you learn certain skills, you don't value it, you don't practice it, naturally it disappears from you over a period of time. So similarly, because in Kali Yuga, everybody is Sudra in general. The Vedas were such intellectual body of wisdom. There is incompatibility between the people in general and the knowledge of Vedas. So that's why you don't hear about Vedas at all, because people are naturally disqualified for it, to read from them. And so they neglected it, and we have in parts reserved by Gorakhpur, and even some of them are available with ISKCON as well now in right. So, but otherwise, most of it is lost. Evam pravrittasya sada.
Evam pravrittasya sada.
Bhutanam sreyashi dvija.
Bhutanam shreyasi dvija.
Sarvatmaikenapi yada.
Sarvatmaikenapi yada.
Natusha dridayam tata. Bhutayam Shreyashi Dvija. Bhutayam means for all living entities, the ultimate benefit. Shreyash means ultimate benefit. Dvija for the twice born. Sarvatmakena api, by all means. Yeah. Okay, read.
O twice born Brahmanas, still his mind was not satisfied, although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people.
This is a very interesting verse. Generally, people who work selflessly for the benefit and welfare of other living entities, they derive a lot of satisfaction. That is the expectation, right? There will be satisfaction when you help others selflessly. But in the case of Vyasadeva's mind, he was not very satisfied. Although he engaged fully for the welfare of others all his life. This is a lesson for everybody. Just because you are a billionaire like Bill Gates, if you only work for the welfare of all, there will not be real satisfaction of the heart. Because that is how the jiva is designed. The jiva finds satisfaction only in the service of Lord. That is how it is meant. That is it's like a water for fish. Bhakti rasa is the only one that satisfies the heart. So you do anything else, even in the aligning to the selfless welfare of the people in general, it doesn't satisfy the heart. Yeah. Even after achieving independence, Mahatma Gandhi said he was not at all satisfied with all the work that he did. It was recorded that he was more and more pained when Pakistan and India was divided. He led a very miserable life towards last few days. Even though all his life was complete selfless sacrifice for the people in general. It's the story of many people who did welfare work. So after preparing such great Vedic literature also, Vyasadeva was not satisfied. Now we'll understand why. Nati prasida dridaya saraswatyastate shuchau vitarkyan viviktastha idam chovacha dharmavit
Dharmavit.
Is it?
Thus the sage, being dissatisfied at heart, at once began to reflect, because he knew the essence of religion, and he said within himself.
So he could feel the dissatisfaction at heart. And he was doing a honest contemplation. Right? And he knew the essence of religion. He also knew the essence of religion. It's not that he doesn't know. So he's trying to search out within his heart what is going on, why there is dissatisfaction after all this welfare work. Dritavratena hi maya.
Dhrutarvatena hi maya.
Chandamsi guravognaha.
Chandamsi
Anita nirvikya likena. Grihitam chanusasanam.
Grihitam chanusasanam.
Bharata vyapadeshana.
Bharata vyapadeshena.
Hi amna yatardascha pradash.
Namna yatartascha
Drishyate yatra dharmadi.
Drishyate yatra dharmadi.
Sri Sudradhir apyuta.
Sri Sudradhir
Virapyuta. Please read.
I have, under strict disciplinary vows, unpretentiously worshipped the Vedas, the spiritual masters, and the altar of sacrifice. I have also abided by the rules and have shown the import of disciplic succession through the explanation of Mahabharata by even women, Shudras, and other friends of the twice born can see the path of religion.
He was considerate for everybody. It's not that his work is only meant for high-class Brahmanas. His work helps every member of society, every class of society. So he was not like he was, only focused on certain people. Even after doing all of this, he was not satisfied. He was just contemplating within his mind all of this.
Prabhuji, friends of twice born, Prabhu. What is exactly friends of twice born here?
Friends of twice born means Dvijabandhu.
Dvijabandhu?
The son of a Brahmana who was not undergone the purificatory rites yet. Right? A Brahmana's son is considered Dvijabandhu by birth. By qualification, he can become a Brahman. Right? If he practices the spiritual path of his father, then he becomes a Brahmana. But by birth, nobody becomes. And some people, like for example in Kali Yuga, they don't really care about their parental lineage. So most of them are considered Dvijabandhus because they don't know the essence of Vedas and they're not practicing spiritual life sincerely. So they're all considered under Dvijabandhus.
Even if you went through the process, still if you are not exhibiting the qualities of Brahmana, then you you are considered Dijabandhu, right, bro? Because
Yes,
Ashwatthama was considered as a Dijabandhu, he is not a Brahmana.
correct. Even though if your qualities do not match, then you are considered a Dijabandhu. Thank you. Not only Brahmana, it could be son of Kshatriya and Vaishya also, because they were all following all these three classes except Sudra in those days, in the previous Vedic times. They were all cultured people. They were all practicing devotion service, performing purificative rites at every stage of life. So they were all considered qualified people. Tatapi bhatame daihyo
Tathapi badami
yatma chaivatmana vibhu
He
Atma
Atma
Chaivatmana Vibhu
sampanna iva bhati
Asampanna
Iva
Bhavati
Bhavati
Bahati.
Brahmavachasya saptama.
Brahmavachasya
Namaha.
Please read.
I am feeling incomplete, though I myself am fully equipped with everything required by the Vedas.
So he's feeling incomplete. He is the incarnation of Lord himself. Okay? He is and fully knowledgeable. Right? Fully knowledgeable. But still he feels incomplete. Now, because his contemplation is honest, Krishna is Paramatma within the heart, he reveals now what is happening within his heart. What is happening with him. Kimva Bhagavata Dharma
Kimva
Bhagavata
Bhagavata
Dharma
Dharma
Prayena Nirupita
Na Prayena
Prayena
Nirupita
Nirupita
Ya Paramahamsanam
Priya
Paramahamsanam
Vahi Achyuta Priya.
Ta Eva He
Vahi
Achyuta
Achyuta
Priya
Priya
Kimva Bhagavata Dharma. Right? So he now understands what's going on with his. I didn't describe Bhagavata Dharma as much in all the literature I gave so far. He could realize because of his honest contemplation, which is Priya Paramahamsana. It is very dear to the great devotees, Paramahamsana, the purified souls, perfect beings. And it is also Priya to Lord, Achyuta Priya. Bhagavata Dharma is very dear to Achyuta Priya. So these two aspects I missed in the literature I compiled so far. Bhagavata Dharma. So Vasudeva himself would realize this aspect. So what can we understand if somebody says I'm following Vedas but not actually practicing Bhagavad Dharma? Compiler himself doesn't feel. There is no way the people who study those literature and depending Chaturvedis and all these people who are focused on Vedanta Sutras, they will not be feeling the same. They will not feel satisfaction. Just like Vyasdeva, who is the compiler of his literature, himself is. Yeah. Please read.
This may be because I did not specifically point out the devotional service of the Lord, which is dear both to perfect beings and to the infallible Lord.
So that is the missing link. He realizes that. And now Bhagavatam is full of compilation of Bhagavata Dharma. Right? Bhagavata Dharma in the life of Dhruva Maharaj. Bhagavad Dharma in the life of Prahlad Maharaj. Bhagavad Dharma in the life of how they surrendered, basically how they surrendered to Bhagavan. Okay? Bhagavad Dharma means how the process of surrender to the Supreme Lord. Everybody, like any Ambarish Maharaj, same story. Prithu Maharaj, same story. Parikshit Maharaj, same story, right? So Parikshit Maharaj was put in this great trouble, great calamity of losing life in 7 days. And then there was Bhagavatam was born. Arjuna was put in great distress and confusion. And then Bhagavad Gita was born. In this way, Krishna uses various pure devotees as an instruments to create this literature for the benefit of everybody. Yudhishthira Maharaj was confused before taking up the rulership. And then the instructions of Bhishma were available, the instructions of Krishna were available about the rulership. In this way, so now, go ahead.
But the dissatisfaction which was being felt by Srila Vyasadeva is expressed here in his own words. This was felt for the normal condition of the living being in the devotional service of the Lord. Unless one is fixed in the normal condition of service, neither the Lord nor the living being can become fully satisfied.
The heart is to be satisfied. That's only possible in devotion service, because the Paramatma within the heart will be satisfied. Okay? So no other process, unless one is fixed in the normal condition of service to the Supreme Lord, neither the Lord nor the living being can become fully satisfied. Any questions?
Yeah, Prabhuji, I had a doubt, like all this, thoughts that Vyasadeva is having is even before Narada Muni rectifies his problem, is it? Like, so he already felt all this himself?
He himself feels, and now Narada Muni confirms that. Narada Muni, now the next verse he enters, next two verses.
Oh, I thought he feels dissatisfied, and then Narada Muni comes, and that's when he asks him. And okay.
Yeah, he reconfirms, but already Vyasadeva feels he through his honest contemplation itself he gets he understands the situation.
Which is the last two lines tells, right? This defect was felt by him when Narada Muni, his spiritual master, reached him.
No, he immediately feels that he's already feeling this. He already feels this. Actually, I heard in lectures. He feels this, but then it is immediately confirmed by Narada Muni.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prabhuji?
He's a Trikalagna, he knows, he's incarnation himself.
Hare Krishna. So Prabhu, Vyasadeva is a Shakti Avesha avatar. So now, given he is expansion, how come he gets into this position where he gets dissatisfied?
Yeah. So he is empowered incarnation, right? Not Shakti Aves avatar.
Yes.
Shakti Aves avatars are jivas with empowered opulences of Supreme Lord. So it is possible. I mean, they are not the Vishnu Tattvas. So even sometimes, for the sake of pastimes, Lord Krishna gets headache, for example, right? Then that is there is a reason for it. After that, there is going to be something important that's going to happen. For example, in this case, the
Bhagavatam needs to be written. Yes.
Bhagavatam was created after this. Right?
Got it.
There is a great purpose behind all these things. I was explaining, even for pure devotees, calamities happen in their life. If suppose Srila Prabhupada was serving nicely in Jhansi and he was preaching, if everything were to go fine, he might have just settled to preach in India itself.
Yeah.
He was flourishing in India.
Yes.
He will not venture outside. Right? At that point, one may not realize, but later on we can see how Lord actually orchestrated all his life. Right? He got through so many difficulties, challenges.
Yeah, demonstrate the pastimes. Yes.
Tashaivam akhilam atmanam.
Tashaivam kilam atmanam.
Manyamana sakhi kijjata.
Manyamana
Yata.
Krishnasya narado bhyagat.
Krishna Narado Bhyagat.
Tamam prag udahritam.
Ashramam Pragdhar.
Please read. Please read.
As mentioned before, Narad reached the cottage of Krishna Dvaipayan Vyas on the banks of Saraswati, just as Vasdev was regretting his defects.
He realizes, see, he regrets his defects. Just at that time, his spiritual master arrives. Last verse. Let's read this. Tamabhignaya sahasa prachuttaya gatam muni
Prachuttaya muni
pujayam asha vidhivam
Pujayam Ashavivam
Naradam Pujitam
Naradam
Surapoojitam.
At the
At the
auspicious
auspicious arrival of Sri Narada, Sri Vyasadeva got up respectfully and worshipped him, giving him veneration equal to that given to Brahmaji, the creator.
So Vyasdev was feeling despondent, very very sad. But when Narada Muni came, spiritual master came, he did not mind his despondency. Sometimes people get lost in their own misery and they don't give proper respect to people who come at the time. So he was not. He immediately got up and gave as good a respect as receiving Brahmaji. The reason is Brahmaji was the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, sorry, Narada Muni, and the father also. And so he respects Narada Muni as good as Brahmaji. That is parampara. One should respect the guru as well as guru's guru equal. Or guru's guru. It should be on the same level. Please read.
Vidhi means Brahma, the first created living being. He is the original student as well as the professor of the Vedas. He learned it from Sri Krishna and taught Narada first. So Narada is the second Acharya in the line of spiritual disciplic succession. He is the
You're saying social
representative of
studies
Brahma,
teacher.
and therefore he is respected exactly like Brahma, the father of all Vidhis.
So he is respected as much as Brahma. He is representative of Brahma. So that is the culture of those days, Vedic times. So this concludes this chapter with the arrival of Narada Muni and expression of despondency by Vyasadeva. Right? So overall, this chapter were the next set of questions related to the origins of Bhagavatam, why and when it was compiled, and the author of the Bhagavatam, which is Vyasadeva, his pastime, how he compiled, how he distributed, and how he felt despondency, how his spiritual master arrived, all of that. And before that, we also discussed about how Parikshit Maharaj, the Parikshit Maharaj, how he was born, all his activities are wonderful. So those will be described in the future chapters. And also there was discussion about the speaker of Bhagavatam, who is Sukadeva Goswami. Right? Questions about Sukadeva Goswami, how Sukadeva Goswami, what was the inspiration for him to come speak this? What was the nature of it? What was the nature of him? All of those were discussed. Yeah, so we end the discussion here. If you have any questions, we can discuss. I hope it was very easy chapter, and so that's why it went through very quickly. We covered 30 verses today, almost. Any questions?
Prabhuji, so are we going all verse by verse, or is there selected verses only from that chapter?
Oh, Bhakti Vaibhava means we study all the verses like this.
All the verses, okay.
The method followed in GV, I'm following the same method, same speed, everything. Exactly like GV.
Thank you.
Was there the age of Parikshit Maharaj? I mean, I know it is mentioned as Yuva somewhere, but what was he around when?
So the age of Parikshit Maharaj, he is very youthful. It's mentioned as youthful. I don't know. I can guess, but I don't want to guess. It's not mentioned. You want to know exact age?
No, just approximately. Is it like, because I think
Prime.
was it like, were they living for 100 plus? Like there's a lot more age, right? When
So in that age, generally, people were living hundreds of years, right? The beginning of that age was almost 1,000 years, right? But this was like towards the end of Dwapar Yuga, which is like close to beginning of Kali Yuga. So maybe, maybe 150 or 100 years, maybe a little more than that. And he is in prime youth at the time when he faced this situation. Maybe little less than middle age, like 30s, 40s, maybe. Guessing.
Yes. I think one thing that you mentioned that was actually a good takeaway for me is no matter what welfare activities you perform, like Vyas Maharshi, unless you come to the devotional service, you're not going to be satisfied.
Yep, that's the most important lesson in this entire chapter actually. The whole lesson revolves around that. And it also tells what is the essence of all the Vedic wisdom. The final compilation of Vyasadeva, which is Bhagavatam, is the essence. The real satisfaction of heart comes by the satisfaction of Lord, right? Unless Lord is satisfied, Lord is not satisfied with any other process or any other method. So even though you have any other opulences or you do any kind of welfare activities for this selflessly, it doesn't really satisfy the heart.
Yeah, probably one thing I want to share, at least something that happened in our family this week, past week, is like when one of our family members had gone and seen astrology for some of their problems, and they've said like there are some pitru doshas and stuff like that. So they asked to give food to people who are in need, so that way their pitrus will be satisfied and all that. So my aunt, she started to daily when she goes to office, she was packing one more box of lunch, extra disposable kind of box, and she was giving the moment she gets down from a train or something, she was giving to whoever she sees. And then they were in our family call, we were talking and they were saying like, now I've started to do, so Pitrus will be fine and all that. They were just mentioning. So I was just telling them that, if we do welfare also, without Lord, like if you give prasadam, then that is different. But if you do welfare, you will have to again come back in another body and, get the benefit. I'm not sure about how it benefits a Pitrus. So that's one thing I mentioned. And then they said, okay, from maybe going forward, we'll try to offer it to Lord and then offer it to others so that they don't come back. So it's not, I mean, because we are in Krishna consciousness or ISKCON, we know that anything should go as prasadam or through the Lord, not just a welfare without anything linked to the Lord. But many of us, I mean, other family members, they think that they're doing the right thing by just doing welfare. But they don't know the complications behind that, I feel.
That's true. That's true. Very
In line with what we discussed, like.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, good observation. Any other discussion points or inspirations that you have?
So, Prabhuji, I like that great King Parikshit Maharaj's great divine qualities. So no attachment for the worldly opulence and best well-wisher. And he wouldn't allow cow killing, and he's not like putting himself centered something, always putting Krishna in the center. The another point is, if one is following Krishna conscious properly, Krishna will take care of him completely. There won't be any unhappy for the jiva.
Very good. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, so we'll end the call. It's 4 p.m. or 5. Thank you all very much.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.